Your voice, and I repeat, my life is the not if we think that until one day they come true. Mr. Given was beaten by his own attendants.
Your views. And if politicians steal, definitely they steal for the future, so that they can live well.
For heaven's sake, we even put police.
Let the people talk. Every Tuesday and Friday at 9 a.m. on Phoenix FM.
It's 10 minutes past 9 in the morning. Welcome to Friday's edition of Let the People Talk on the 19th of January 2024. As usual, we discuss various national issues and encourage you to participate by calling in. The phone lines will be open. You'll be using 0978-895-895 or 0211-226841. You can also send your WhatsApp messages to 0978-895-895. You can do this during the duration of the conversation. And also from our Facebook page, Phoenix FM Zambia, where we are streaming live. Some of the topical issues in the country as we begin the year 2024 include the fight against cholera, but also issues around governance and policy direction. We talk about the fight against corruption, but also looking at various issues that involve the Republican president and decisions generally being made. Joining us for today's conversation is the Economic Front president, Mr. Wynter Kabimba, who's in studio. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on Let the People Talk.
Thank you, Chumaka, and good morning, dear listeners.
Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too, and Happy New Year to Radio Phoenix.
Are you enjoying the weather that the New Year has come with?
Yeah, it was extremely hot. We were getting baked in September, October, and early November. So it's so nice that it is cool now. And except for the fact that now it has triggered COVID and also contributed to the cholera, thing. But I think the weather is good.
Have you been following the Africa Cup of Nations? Did you see Zambia's performance for the opening match of this year's tournament?
I was just telling my driver when we were coming here. I said, I don't know what is wrong with African technology because I can hardly see the people on TV. The World Cup, is clearer when you are watching it. Africa Cup, I just see dotted the silhouettes, of human beings, what I consider human beings. So it's not even interesting to watch it. You can't even see the ball. You just see the people bunkana. Then that's where the ball is. So I don't know what is wrong. I think they should do better than the.
You don't think it's anything to do with the TV or the where you're watching the channel from?
My TV is new. It's the technology.
But you brought up a very interesting point. I know the elephant in the room at the moment is you going to community house. But before we even delve into that, I'd like to get your general overview of the year 2023 as far as governance is concerned.
Well, it depends on which angle you are coming from. The issues of governance continue to be topical in our country, and I'm sure beyond Zambia, we are still grappling with the issues of the rule of law. We are still grappling with the issues of the independence of the judiciary. We are still grappling, Chimweka, with the issues of the police service and how it must respect the civil liberties of citizens. We are still in this zone, of providing some architecture to a lot of institutions of governance. So this continues to be topical, and one can say there was probably a bit of progress in 2023. One can say there was a bit of retrogression in 2023. And speaking from our side as the economic front, I think we would have done better in 2023. The UPND government would certainly have done better. There were more arrests, arbitrary arrests of opposition political figures. The issues of police bond, still rank very high. That people that are being arrested for bondable offenses are not easily being given bond by the police. This perception, and maybe it may not be wrong that the IG, the police command, is at the beck and call of the executive continues to run very high. And I think if I were the police IG, I would be concerned about that kind of perception. So we continue, with this conversation of what would be an ideal police command, what would be an ideal, kind of judiciary, how should, suspects who enjoy the fundamental right in the Constitution, of the right of innocence, that you are deemed under the Constitution to be innocent until you are proven guilty. I don't think that is we are seeing that, much of that. We seem to be drifting towards the French system where you are guilty until you prove yourself innocent. That's a converse under the English legal system.
You speak of the independence of some of these institutions, yes. The organs of government, the judiciary, the community police still, but how can that really be achieved when we know that the appointing authority is the head of the executive, is still the president? Is it still feasible? I don't even think, Chimweka, that is a problem. I know that the argument submitted is always that the president appoints the IG, the president appoints the judges, the president appoints the attorney general. But this is what happens in almost all the countries. Okay, the judges in the United States are appointed by the president, but they are still independent. They still perform, their functions independent of the appointing authority. And the example that I give is Donald Trump, the past president. I think he had the privilege of appointing the largest number of judges ever. I think he appointed 3 judges to the federal Supreme Court. But when his cases went to the federal Supreme Court, if you remember when he was challenging the results, and all the 3 judges voted against him. So it has, in my view, it has nothing to do with the appointing authority. It has everything to do with the attitudes of both the appointing authority and those that are appointed. We have a country, I've coined the phrase that this is a country where people want to keep a job by not doing it. And sometimes the perception, wrongly or rightly, falls on the appointing authority. Okay? I remember one time, I'll give you this example. Chikwete was in Muchinga during the ECO era. He was in Muchinga mobilizing the Rainbow Party then, before we changed the name to Economic Front. And he wakes up one morning and he finds that the lodge where he was has been surrounded by police and office of the president officials. Then he calls me here and says, listen to what is happening, and they are preventing us from holding a meeting. I sent a text message to ECL. I said, what is going on? This is what is going on in Muchinga. I think it was in Chinsali. You know what he said to me? These police officers just become overzealous. That was his answer. They just become overzealous. I don't even know why they should be doing what they are doing. I know. And then the word went to Kampiongo, who was Minister of Home Affairs that time. They called the division the provincial commanding officer in Muchinga, who thought he was doing the right thing, and within 15 minutes, all those police officers that had surrounded the lodge and the office of the president, people had disappeared. Okay, so I'm giving you that example, that sometimes it is the officers that assume that they are doing that in the interest of the appointing authority. So essentially, the blame should not always go to the Republican president as it usually does.
If this example, which I've given you, which is a living example, is anything to go by, I don't think that the blame should always be with the appointing authority. The officers themselves, this business of going Mutuanaita retired 10 years ago, then you bring them back. They've been going hungry for 10 years. You think that they are going to do their job? Could it be? Could it be? They will be so worried about keeping the job more than doing it. They are always apprehensive that if I do this, I may be fired. That's a problem, in my view.
That's from the governance perspective, but the name of your political party is the Economic Front.
Economic Front.
From the Economic Front of 2023, what would your overview be?
I think we've done well. We had our last Central Committee meeting of the year last month in December to wrap up the year, to give some reflections on our party activities in the provinces for the year. We received the reports from the provincial leadership that managed to attend the Central Committee meeting. Some of them could not attend because of the cost of fares in terms of transport to travel from northern province, for example. It costs you 1,000 kwacha now to get into Lusaka and back. So a good number of them were constrained, by that. But for the ones that came, I think we had a good meeting and the reports were satisfactory. So we are happy.
And from the economic side of the country's affairs in 2023, what would your outlook be?
The economy did not perform very well. I'm not an economist. I'm a lawyer, but I'm still a citizen. So I'm affected by the prices of commodities. I'm still affected by a lot of things that I need, for my living. The performance of the economy was definitely dismal, and the kwacha performance was bad. It continues, to be under a great deal of stress, and but we had warned HH about this. I've made statements in the past, that it's difficult to run a third world economy unless you understand the underpinning factors. Okay. I've also said in the past, when the UPND was getting very ecstatic about the IMF program, I said, it will not bring heaven on earth. If anything, it will exacerbate the problems that you see today. And that's exactly what is happening. Nowhere has the IMF gone, Chimweka, where they have improved the economic conditions of that country. Nowhere. The government of Christina Kirchner in Argentina, and the president then, Kirchner was the vice president, has fallen now purely on account of the IMF program. Argentina was given the largest amount that the IMF has ever disbursed since its establishment in 1948, $42 billion. But unemployment kept on, rising. The prices of commodities kept on rising. There were protests on the streets of Buenos Aires because people couldn't just afford. Okay, Ghana, was being praised as an example of a successful IMF program. It's not true. They are down now, in the economy. So when you listen to the UPND, Stumbeko Musokotwane, every time thinking that things will get better, HH gets to a press conference, 2024 will get better, for as long as this program they have agreed with the IMF continues to run, things will only get worse. I've seen this not only now, I've seen it in the past. Stumbeko has seen this not only now, he has seen it in the past. HH has not only seen this now, he has seen it in the past. So this is a third world economy which is extremely difficult to manage. Of course, people can talk about external factors now that are emerging, which are real. But there is more that you need to do to manage a third world economy.
From your observations, that's why we deliberately wanted to get your observations of what's been happening, because this now leads to your visit to Community House, seeing President Hakainde Hichilema at his residence there, and the expectation is that you brought these issues up. What exactly was
No, you are.
well, that's the expectation. That is the expectation. But you are here, so you are in the best position to tell us what the reason was behind that particular visit for. Because from a political lens, others have seen it as you now going to bed with the ruling party, and your views and perspectives are bound to change. What inspired that visit to the community house?
Look, I have said Chimweka in the past, and I'll say it again. I've said very publicly that if an opportunity arose to meet the president to discuss national affairs, I would submit, to that invitation, or I would myself ask, to meet him. I've said that many times, that HH is not my enemy. I have many disagreements with him in terms of policies, and I don't think that my visit will change that. So I went to community house purely on a private visit. For your own information, HH's wife is my first cousin. I didn't want to say this to the public. Okay? HH's wife, Mutinta, is my first cousin. So I take the position which I take not because I don't like HH. I've been on these radio programs where people, is praise singers, phone in and say, oh no, you are just bitter. No, you just hate the man. No. I have a duty as a citizen of this country, not only as the leader of the economic front, to raise issues of governance where I think that things are going wrong. That's my duty as a citizen. If people that are not citizens of this country, like the Swedish ambassador, can raise issues of governance, what about me? I have more of the rights than a Swedish ambassador or any diplomat in this country. So I went to community house as a private visit. That's why you saw in the pictures. If you saw, I'm sure you must have seen the pictures. The first lady was with us. So we chatted. They asked about my dad. How he's doing because he's ailing. So we discussed family issues. But obviously, we also touched on national issues. But you know what I said to the president? What we have discussed here is confidential. You will not hear it from anybody. That's that's my level of discipline.
Was this at the invitation of the Ijinamas, or did you?
It doesn't matter who
ask to meet them.
It doesn't matter. That's not water under the bridge. It doesn't matter who invited who. It doesn't matter who asked for the meeting. The fact is that I was at community house, and the only condition that I gave was that I didn't want to go there in the night. I wanted to go there during the day.
And what was the reasoning behind that?
Because I didn't want to raise unnecessary speculation. If people had just say, who is this short guy, walking, and then they look at my head and this looks like Wynter Kabimba, it would have been totally different. The interpretation would have been different. But I can also tell you that I visited the ECL at Nkwazi's house when he was the president. Okay? So there's nothing, I am an independent person and I'm an independent thinker. So the people that, I laughed when I was looking at the social media. Somebody posted something like, oh, Nicodemus meets Jesus. Meaning I'm the Nicodemus and HH is the Jesus. Wrong. Some of them are saying, yeah, Manjiba Wynter Njara Yabagwira. Wrong. I'm able to feed myself. But I take cognizance of the fact that HH is president. Okay? He took a different stance himself when he was in the opposition. He never recognized the ECL. But I don't want to be like him. So he's president, and I'm a citizen of this country. He took up a voluntary job to save my interest and to save the interests of the Zambians, and therefore there should be no acrimony in my view. I should be allowed to express myself and criticize him where I think that he's not doing things right. That's my responsibility. That's my duty. It's not to idolize him. It's to say to him, this is wrong and it shall not work. Just like I'm saying, the IMF program shall not work.
So two things from what you've mentioned. Number one, even with your criticism of President Hakainde Hichilema's decisions and his way of politics, even in the past, did this in any way impact your private relations, your family relations, obviously with his wife and himself?
No, that's why they were both very very happy to welcome me. It means even HH himself, even his wife, have not taken my criticism to heart. I think they've come to appreciate that my criticism is in good faith. If they had taken it to heart, they would have just said, bugger off, we don't want to see you around here. But they didn't. So we had a cordial environment. So that part I appreciated. That party, and he never said to me, please stop criticizing me. We never got to that level of discussion. No. We didn't sign a covenant that now that I've been at Community House, sorry, you'll never hear me say anything against you. No. Because he knows I'm an independent thinker.
And you said even the issues that you brought up to him, you don't really expect him to exactly act upon them because you said them? Is that your way of suggesting that he doesn't take divergent views and suggestions from others?
No. Don't put the words in my mouth. I didn't say that. I didn't go there to lend advice, to him. We were discussing in general terms. Okay, we are discussing in general terms. So if he within that parameters of our general discussion, there is something that he picked from there that he makes sense, or to him, well and good. If there's nothing that I said, for the whole period of over 2 hours that I was there, that does not make sense, well and good. I don't think that everything that I say and think about is the best. I always think that somebody else could have a better idea than mine.
In the build-up to the 2021 general elections, we did see what seemed like a collaboration between yourselves as the Economic Front and the Patriotic Front at that particular time.
Yeah.
So does this mean that an opportunity still remains available for you to have a similar partnership with the ruling United Party for National Development?
We haven't reached that point. There is nothing that has come up so far in that direction. Okay, we collaborated with the PF in the 2021 elections because the Central Committee of the party thought that was the best thing to do, and that memorandum of understanding expired at the end of those elections. So there's no partnership now between EF and PF, or indeed any other political party.
Do you regret the collaboration leading up to the election?
Not really. Chimweka, when you make a decision in life, you don't regret just because things did not go your way or things did not go the way you expected them to go. I think that's a very negative approach to life. What you do is you take responsibility. If you failed, like we did, you draw lessons from that failure, and then you say, with hindsight, I'll do it differently in future. So we drew lessons from that collaboration with the PF, and we'll do it better in the future.
What do you make of the state of the biggest opposition political party in the country, the PF, a party that you were once Secretary General of, and looking at the wrangles within the party now, the factions that have risen from it? What's your What's your take?
If history is anything to go by, PF is finished. Whether they like it or not, whether Edgar comes back or not, PF is finished. If history is anything to go by, PF is gone. Secondly, if they think that what will sustain PF are court actions, wrong, then they don't know history of how political parties die. So my short answer is PF is gone. They'll be very lucky to redeem it from this situation. They'll be very lucky.
So you don't think the rebranding process is anything that will yield any results?
Look, if you are a football team and you are given an opportunity to change the team at halftime, and you go into, what do they call it, the change room?
The dressing room.
The dressing room. You go into the dressing room. If the color of your jerseys when you are playing in the first half was red, and you go and get green and give it to the same players that were playing in the first half, surely you can't call that a new team. You can't call it. It will be folly for you to say that you have rebranded and that this group of 11 will do better than it did in the first half. That's a folly of PF. That is the naivety that I see in PF. That the same group of people that brought PF down, in my view, I could be wrong, but in my view, are the same people that are rebranding themselves. Where have you ever heard that kind of rebranding? Same people. They are rebranding themselves. It can't work.
We've seen some members of the Patriotic Front who have made defections, most of them making their defections to the Socialist Party. Others have advised them to just join other political parties, the Democratic, the Citizens First Party, beg your pardon, perhaps even the Economic Front. Are you willing to open your doors to the members of the Patriotic Front now in the process also of rebranding?
Yes, but we are very strict. I'll tell you this. There is a caveat for you joining the EF. We are very strict in terms of who joins us, especially from PF, because we know most of the PF members. We know the characters that are indisciplined and they have never changed over the years, and we don't think that they are coming to EF will add any value to our party. And that's why you see some of them do not even make an attempt to come to EF, because they know I know them. So they can go to other political parties where those political parties think that they are adding value, to them. They will not come to the Economic Front, because they themselves have not changed. They have not changed. So I find it interesting when people, friends about this parading of so-called new members from the Patriotic Front. I can tell you that they will not add value, they've never changed in their habits, they have never changed in their attitudes. They still carry the same indiscipline, they were accustomed to in PF. So the ones that are prepared to join us, and we have those that have joined us, the difference is that we don't parade them ourselves, and we don't call those people that come to our party from other political parties defectors. We think that's a very demeaning term. We call them new members.
But still on the process of rebranding, despite these issues being in court, Mr. Mao Sampa insists that he's the legitimate president of the Patriotic Front. Do you think he can make a good president of the party, and with the members that he wants to work with going into 2026? Who, from what we've seen so far, a number of them are different from those who served in government under the leadership of former President Edgar Lungu.
I'll not answer that question, but I'll answer it in this way. My book will be coming out, sometime this year. I've written a memoir, and if you get an opportunity to read my book, you'll find a paragraph or a chapter where I've expressed myself or what I think about Miles Sampa and the other leaders in PF, those that I worked with.
So when can we expect this book to be out?
It will be out hopefully towards the end of this year. I have not spared anybody in that book, including myself.
So it sounds like you've got a few things to say about Mr. Miles Sampa that maybe wouldn't be too pleasant for him.
Certainly. That's my evaluation of him. That's my evaluation.
So you don't hold him in high esteem?
And if you asked me, the answer is no. And I'm not the only one. That's why even Michael said the highest position he gave him was that of deputy minister. If he thought that Miles was something better than that, I'm sure I would have given him a cabinet minister position. But the highest that he ever went was deputy minister. The highest that Davis Mwina, who later became Secretary General of PF, the highest he went under Michael Sat, and had a lot of respect about Michael's judgment of people's characters. He was deputy minister. Okay? Somebody, now that you have brought that up, somebody said to me, sent me a WhatsApp message and says, why are you running with this dry joke, that the only role that Miles Sampa played during PF was to test, the PA system and say, hello, test 1 2 1 2. Why are you? I said, but this is not even a dry joke. This is the truth. This is the truth. There's no rally which I attended myself with Michael Sat and others where Miles Sampa ever addressed, the people. He had no capacity to do so.
But he takes pride in pulling great numbers for the Patriotic Front in Matera in 2011.
Chaboboka. So when the thing is collapsing, anybody, maybe not even anybody, but anything can take up the leadership. Chaboboka man. PF is in the ICU. So anybody can purport to be a doctor to get it out of the ICU. That's what is happening.
Let's get into the work of the president. You were talking about how earlier, in a nutshell, sometimes those who work in the civil service do some of these things to, in a way, almost sabotaging the presidency. The presidency doesn't endorse it, but they still do some of these shoddy works and be unprofessional.
Yeah.
Yesterday he was speaking with permanent secretaries, controlling officers, government senior officials, and just warning them of consequences of not delivering. Let's just take a listen to this.
Can you change the way you guys work? Memos. It takes 1 month for a memo to come back to you, for sometimes 3 months. Walk over to each other's office. Just walk up. 3-4 PSs are sitting over designs of teachers' houses under CDM. What stops you from doing that? Then you clear all the hazy areas. Focus on deliverables. Focus on outcomes. Don't focus on, I wrote them a memo. They have not responded, so I'm safe. What are you safe for? You've not delivered with it. Colleagues, there will be consequences for non-delivery. Cabinet office shouldn't be a barrier, it should be a facilitator to get things done. Sitting on decisions, spending expensively when you have cheaper alternatives with good quality, there will be consequences.
And even before this, the president has talked about the bureaucracies in government and how they derail some of these processes. You've also served in government. What's your take on this?
Bureaucracy is part of government. Without bureaucracy, government would collapse. Okay? That's one thing that HH should realize. Bureaucracy is part of the system of government. It's inherent, in the system. I think the issue is raising, in my view, is not even about democracy, it's about competency. And the problem that he has is that he has appointed people that have no experience in government administration. That's where the issue is, in my view. Not bureaucracy. Okay? The issue at stake is competency. That's the issue. And this spreads out, in almost all institutions. Competence, lack of experience. If you don't know, you don't know. If you don't know, please learn to ask from those that you think know something about what you're about to do. Okay? That's all. So for me, I separate, the two. I separate the two. Government works on memos. You must write. You must always communicate in writing. Not on WhatsApp. In writing. That's how government functions. Because the writing reflects the regulations under which you are making that decision. I always used to say when I was town clerk to my directors, if you write a letter that is going outside, or even an internal memo, the first question you should ask yourself is which rule or regulation supports this decision. If you find that you can't find a regulation, then that decision is illegal. Okay? So writing complements the regulations of government. I think the issue which I've seen with the UPND is lack of experience in government. That's where the problem is, in my view. If you are going to appoint permanent secretaries, who ideally have never worked in government, and they don't want to ask those that have worked in government. That's one of the things that I put in my book, that maybe we should have legislation, Chimweka, that says that at the end of every administration, when we are transiting from one government to another government, there must be a piece of legislation that obligates everybody to make a handover to the next group. That they do in the United States. We've got that between the outgoing president and the incoming president. We don't have that in the civil service. That is causing problems for us. Government is not just, a machinery where, you just walk in and sit there like you want to drive a car, as long as you find the car in the ignition and you think you can run the car. Government doesn't operate like that. You must know. You must know the parameters of your office. You must know the regulations that regulate the office you are occupying, and the decisions that you make must be supported by law. That's where the problem is. That's the pitfall, main pitfall of UPND, lack of experience, and people don't want to ask. Command. That's my view.
While he was addressing the senior government officials, he also touched on a very, others would call it a sensitive issue, but it's one that came up again this year, at the beginning of the year, the issue of Barotseland, and says there's no country called Barotseland, it's Western Province. And earlier this year, we did see a video by the Ninyungandambo, who was demanding for the secession of the Barotseland from Zambia being looked into. Yeah. What's your view on this? Because it's something that has been an issue for years now, and previous governments have also experienced this.
Yeah, Chimweka, that's a very important issue that you raise, and I'm glad you raise it. I listened, I watched the clip, where the president was saying, I think he was addressing one of his PSs from Western Province, and he said to him, there's no country known as Barotseland, because we're a unitary country, state. And he's right. When we were in PF, first let me put it this way. There is a lot of misinformation, and I think this is important. There is a lot of misinformation by those agitators about Barotseland, which they are training out, disseminating, to the Zambian public. a lot of misinformation. Okay? When you listen to this issue, the way they try to contextualize it, they put it as if Kaunda duped, the losses, not even the losses, they duped the people of Western Province into coming into Zambia or joining Zambia at the time of independence. Okay? They actually misrepresent history. Now, I have discussed the Barotseland issue in my book. And here, in summary, are the facts. Fact number one, in May 1964, just a few months before Zambia became independent. Firstly, in fact, before that, Barotseland was a protectorate. Northern Rhodesia was a protectorate under the British administration. In May of 1964, there was an agreement that the protectorate called Barotseland, which had a broader geographical area than the Western Province today, must be part of a new sovereign entity called Zambia. And Kaunda and the Litunga then, in May of 1964, signed what is now called the Barotseland Agreement. It's a very small pamphlet. I'm exhibiting it in my book.
Because it's going to be a very rich book.
Yeah, but also you must dip in your pocket if you're going to get a copy. No, I'm joking. Anyway, so the Kaunda and the Litunga then signed this Barotseland agreement. Okay? And there was no coercion, there was no duress. It's not as if Kaunda acted like a crook to dupe the Litunga. Because the Litunga was even more educated than Kaunda. Okay? So they signed the Barotseland agreement. In 1969, Kaunda introduces a constitutional amendment, number 5 of 1969, to Parliament, which Parliament was composed of MPs from Western Province then, or Barotseland. So he takes a constitutional amendment to Parliament to abrogate the Barotseland Agreement. And that constitutional amendment is passed by the legislature, a legal entity of the representative of the people. Third fact, in 1970, Kaunda introduces another amendment, which was constitutional amendment number 44 of 1970, which changed the name now from Barotseland to Western Province. So all these steps taken by the UNIP government then were legal steps to which the representatives of Western Province were party. When you listen to the conversation from those that are agitating, the enforcement of the Barotseland or the restoration of the Barotseland agreement, it's as if Kaunda just did these things, behind their back. Wrong. That's not the correct, thing. Okay? So when Michael Sata was the president, I went to the president myself and I said to him, listen, we can resolve this problem very easily. And the way we resolve it, I said to President Sata, why don't we go for a referendum? Go for a referendum. Let the people of Western Province now choose. We can go and campaign. Let them decide. Free will, free determination. Because there was a letter at that time which they had written again to the UN. Now the United Nations doesn't run the domestic affairs of countries. And I can tell you that if Microsoft had not died, would have resolved the Barotseland issue. So I was happy with the comment from HH when he said there is no country known as Barotseland. But also, I think the European government must do more and teach the Zambian people or churn out this information of how the Barotseland agreement came about, so that those that are agitating for this do not take advantage of the ignorance of our people.
Let's take a break for the community news at 10, and after the break we'll delve into health issues. We know that there's the cholera outbreak, a surge in COVID-19 cases as well, and soon after that we'll open up the phone lines to you, the listener, to come through on 0978-895-895 or 0211-226841. Your WhatsApp messages via 0978-895-895, and we are live on our Facebook page.
Follow Phoenix FM on Instagram. Follow Phoenix FM on Instagram. Search Phoenix FM Zambia to see behind-the-scenes images and videos of your favorite presenters.
Lusaka is among the fastest growing cities in the southern region. Did you know that the city is partnering with this last city, which presents opportunities to bogus and fake retailers? Yes, Horizon Properties is a trusted name and the #1 buyer's partner in affordable residential plots and farms with a track record spanning over 10 years. Remember, buy land from the people in land. Buy cheap land from Horizon Properties. Come visit our head office in Woodlands on Chindo Road, right opposite the Woodlands A Primary School. Kabimba Shopping Complex, shop number 8, Chindo Road, Lusaka. Lusaka Town Center on the alley behind the Lusaka Hotel. Contact our Kabimba office on 0211-260422. Our town office 0211-226902. Horizon Properties, real property matters.
Imagine sleeping only 15 minutes a day. Not ideal, right? But getting cash in just 15 minutes? Now that's amazing. Head over to any Express Credit branch nationwide and get up to 10,000 kwacha in cash. Bam! And your wallet goes ding. Here's a 15-minute drill. Grab your ID, payslip, and bank statement. Visit Express Credit branches nationwide. Apply online by dialing *494*120#. Or just give us a ring on 3334. Terms and conditions apply. Are you under financial pressure? Tottenham Fin Services has a solution for you. We give instant cash loans to civil servants, ZESCO and Zambia's employees. Bring your 3 latest bank statements, a latest payslip, your NRC, and get an instant loan of up to 5,000 kwacha within 10 minutes. Maximum payback period is 6 months. We are found countrywide in Lusaka, Kawe, Dola, Kitwe, and many other towns. Great news this festive season. Get a loan top-up by visiting your nearest branch. Call 096-677-5064. Tottenham Fin Services, a helping hand when you really need it.
Need cash while on the go? No worries. No need to go to a branch either. We offer real help through our Cash Plus agents located all over the country. Cash Plus is convenient for both FNB and non-FNB customers, allowing you to deposit and withdraw money. And this includes your e-wallet. All you need is your cell phone. For FNB customers, register for cell phone banking on *130*3210# or download the FNB app to access Cash Plus services. Non-FNB customers, you can also receive an e-wallet to withdraw at a Cash Plus agent. So remember, when you need to transact, visit your nearest Cash Plus agent and enjoy the convenience of accessing financial services within your vicinity. FNB is a licensed commercial bank. FNB, how can we help you? How can we help you?
Did you know that you can now pay for government services such as road taxes, ground rentals, property transfers, vehicle transfers, licenses, and many more online? That's right, you can now pay for public services online on the ZAM Services portal using our Stanbic debit or credit card. Save on time and pay for over 270 government services online on ZAM Services portal. Simply log on to eservices.gov.zm to get paid with the Stanbic debit or credit card. Call us on *888 for more information. Stanbic Bank.
This time check is brought to you by Stanbic Bank. The time on Phoenix FM is 9:59. Up next, the community news.
This time check was brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Phoenix FM.
The community news. The headlines. Over 50 houses collapse in Kabwe following heavy rains. And Kafue to benefit from 150 motorbikes donated to Lusaka Province Agro Office. With the community news, I am Patti Mogando. Over 50 houses have collapsed in Kabwe district of the Central Province following heavy rains. Central Province Permanent Secretary Milna Mwanagampwe disclosed this during a media briefing, saying some houses have collapsed across the region, with Kabwe leading at 53. Mr. Mwanagampwe said some houses in Chisamba and Kapirimposhi districts have also collapsed, but the actual number of the affected households has not been verified. The Permanent Secretary has also disclosed that 3 bridges, 2 in Mukushi and 1 in Chisamba, have also been washed away. He said a number of families have been affected and emergency response measures have been activated in order to mitigate the impact. Kafue district is set to benefit from 150 motorbikes donated to the Lusaka Province Agricultural Office by the Zambia Emergency Food Production Facility. Zanis reports that Lusaka Province Agriculture Coordinator Pascal Chipasha says the donation of the 150 motorbikes will aid the work of the agriculture extension officers and ensure timely crop monitoring and training of farmers on integrated armyworm prevention measures. Speaking when he addressed agriculture officers in Kafue, Mr. Chipasha said the donated motorbikes are yet to be distributed to districts under Lusaka Province. Mr. Chipasha also added that rehabilitation works for 5 houses for agriculture camp officers in Kafue district will also commence this year. Meanwhile, Mr. Chipasha has directed all Kafue district agriculture officers to ensure that they apply for a practicing license under the Agriculture Institute of Zambia. To end the community news, the headlines once again. Over 50 houses collapse in Kabwe following heavy rains, and Kafue to benefit from 150 motorbikes donated to Lusaka Province Agro Office. Ends the community news. Keep listening to Phoenix Urban with Clyde.
The community news.
Tanzania Ports Authority, the landlord and in charge of all ports in Tanzania, including the Dar es Salaam port, would like to inform the general public that you can now access various services such as port clearance procedure, traffic information, shipping information, cargo information and tracking, dark corridor stakeholders information, and make online payments. Please stop by our office at Tanzania High Commission in Long Acres, Lusaka for more information, or visit our website www.ports.go.tz or send us an email through tpa.lusaka@ports.go.tz or call 0977-489-632. Dar es Salaam Port, connecting your business to the world.
Listen up, dads. You might think that cooking is not your thing, but with Delight Quality Rice, you'll soon be a master chef. When I cook Delight Rice, it's like the grain knows exactly what I'm looking for. Every single grain is perfect, fluffy, and the ultimate game changer.
Hey, honey, I did not know you had this in you.
Delight Rice, because every dad deserves a chance to shine in the kitchen.
That's right, ladies.
Visit Gurok Zambia on Facebook.
Delight is delicious.
We're on the top of the gang in Lusaka, the most convenient with the widest range of hardware. From construction to building materials, from power tools to gardening, we have it all. Heating, cooling, lighting, and more. Monthly promotions, visit any of our stores. Deal with the best.
Come to your nearest memoir hardware store now for our monthly promotions and get all the building materials that you need under one Proof. Memoir, built with the best.
Have you seen that new place on Munali Road by Total?
Yeah, I was there yesterday.
So it's a more
away. It's something different. It has all your shopping needs, but you should also bring the family. They have shops, restaurants, pharmacy, a dental clinic, this new thing called rock climbing, a kids play area, and a games room, and even have a traditional market in there.
Serious?
We bought impra, even some game meat for dinner last night. Anyway, you have to experience this.
Bosotunia shopping and recreation. Just what you need. Visit us on Munali Road today.
A big hand to our CEO. Thank you. As we all know, I was away. I had traveled abroad to buy equipment for our growing company. I'm glad to be back home, though I didn't buy any equipment. And I regret wasting my precious time and money for the air ticket.
You mean you didn't buy the catering equipment? Butchery equipment? The refrigeration equipment?
The prices of equipment abroad, they are very high. Abroad, I compared the prices and the quality of equipment at Golden Key Investment right here in Zambia. They are very affordable.
Let Golden Key Investments open the door to your business. We supply a wide variety of industrial equipment. Golden Key Investments, the missing key to your investments. Phoenix FM.
It's 5 minutes past 10 in the morning. Welcome back to Let the People Talk. Our guest is the Economic Front President, Mr. Wynter Kabimba. And before the break, we discussed quite a number of issues. But before we open up the phone lines, two very important subjects I'd love for us to touch on. Health, but before that, also the fight against corruption. One of the stories from yesterday into this morning is of the Anti-Corruption Commission nabbing the WAMA boss. Previously, just a few days ago, we also heard of the now former Foreign Affairs Minister, Mr. Stanley Kakuro, resigning, and the ACC also looking into his case. What's your general conclusion of the fight against corruption in the country?
Chimeka, the fight against corruption has not been very. Let me put it. It's not been as good as people expected. I mean, UPND in the opposition went to town accusing PF about all sorts of acts of corruption. We saw people in PF walk from rags to riches within a very short period of time. We saw people in PF, really developing affluency beyond their means. Now, I served in the government myself, and I served in the local government system for 15 years. And I can tell you this, no government job, and I repeat, no government job makes one rich. If you are richer in government than you were before you went into government, then you have done something wrong. That's the basic principle.
Please say that again. If you're richer in government than you were before,
yes,
then something is wrong.
Then something is wrong.
Really, others would see it differently. I mean, the people you interact with while you're in government,
I'm telling you myself. Nobody in the Western world would tell you that they got rich when they got into government. Nobody. Nobody in the United States, nobody in the UK, nobody in the Scandinavian countries would tell you, would give you a testimony and say that they were better off serving in government than they were in the private sector. Nobody. Nobody. Because government is purely about service. It's not about the personal accumulation. Now, here is my problem.
Just on that point, so before we move on, so even with one having personal businesses, even before they got into government, but when they get into government and these businesses begin to do better, perhaps people want to get into business with those, with the businesses that have been established, but the mere fact that you are in government, you are a trusted individual, and because of the goodwill that you have obtained by being in government, there is no possibility of your businesses beginning to do well because of that.
If you're a serious businessman, Chimweka, when you get into government with our businesses which are hands-on, your business will get worse. You'll find your business in a worse situation when you come out of government. That's my experience. Okay? So anybody that is going to tell you that they have bought 3 farms out of their income in government, they are lying. There's something wrong or irregular which they have done. And I'm saying this because I served in government. Okay?
And as far as gifts and so on is concerned, while one is serving in government,
how can somebody give you a gift, to the extent that you can buy a farm? How can somebody give you a gift to the extent that you can buy 2 Mercedes-Benz cars? That's not a gift. That's a bribe. What is it that you would have done to somebody as a government officer, as a government permanent secretary, as a government minister, where somebody would gift you with a Mercedes-Benz? That's not a gift. That's bribe. That's a bribe given to you. Okay? Now, here is my problem. For both the government and those that are suspected of corruption, many of our colleagues that were in PF, that are in PF, or that served in the PF government today, are being asked a simple question in my view. You have so many properties which you acquired during the period when you were a minister, for example. Can you please explain how you acquired these properties? How can that take you to retain 5 lawyers to represent you to give an explanation over that? I don't understand myself. If somebody came to me and said, Mr. Kabimba, you have a house on Independence Avenue, can you please explain, to the ACC how you acquired that house? I don't even need a lawyer. I don't even need a lawyer. I can simply go to court and say, here is my file, here is the offer from the council, here is, the first installment that I paid, here is the second installment that I paid, here is the third installment that I paid, and here is the certificate of title transferring this property from the council to me. Simple explanation. So if you can't explain how you acquired the property that you have, and you need to retain 5 lawyers to help you in that explanation, then there is something wrong that you have done. If that case has to take 20 adjournments, then something is wrong with the system. Okay? A few weeks ago, we read a story that one PS has 3 million kwacha in his account. Story came from ACC. That's about 3 weeks ago, a month now. How can it take 3 weeks for the Anti-Corruption Commission to establish the fact whether or not that 3 million kwacha was properly acquired? They've got the bank account. They can go to the bank and trace that transaction. How can it take 1 month for the ACC to establish whether or not there is an offense which has been committed? So there is a problem on both sides. Okay? I can't claim to be persecuted myself if all that the Anti-Corruption Commission is asking how I acquired the property that I have. I can't claim persecution. That's the simplest, question for me to answer. I can't go and spend money on lawyers to establish that. That's the simplest explanation for me to offer under the sun. So, you don't grow from rags to riches in government. Immediately you do that, the red flag must be raised, that there is something wrong that you have done. You can't move from being a nobody and all of a sudden you have 120 truck and trailer trucks that cost $500,000 each.
And you're saying it's absolutely not possible for your businesses to do well while you're serving in government?
No ways. That's why you see all those guys, and this is not only about now, but about PF, even in MMD. Even though that were in MMD, you can line them up. Those who purported, to look very rich when they were ministers, they are paupers today. How is that possible? How is that possible? How is it that within 2 years of you being out of government, you are looking thin that you need a doctor to establish whether or not you are still healthy? How is that possible? Okay? So that's the problem that I have with this issue about
corruption and the fight against corruption.
About corruption and the fight.
We need to open up the phone lines, but before that, let's quickly talk about the health situation in the country. Over 10,000 cases of cholera have been recorded since October 2023. COVID-19 has also been a surge in the numbers. 4 deaths have been recorded just this year. What's your take on how the fight against cholera is going, and also adding in COVID-19?
Look, the easiest way, Chimweka, to fight cholera is to prevent it. That's the easiest way of winning a cholera fight. Prevent it from reaching the apex of an outbreak. If you don't do that, then you have a big problem. Because cholera is water, contaminated water especially. Now, Lusaka is surrounded by 25 informal settlements. Lusaka is quarantined by 25 informal settlements. Possibly more now. That's a figure that we had as Lusaka City Council when I was town clerk. Possibly more now. The public health conditions, the sanitary conditions in these 25 informal settlements are deplorable, to say the least. And the government should have been focusing by now, not only this government, even the previous government, they should have been focusing on how to provide clean water to these informal settlements, because cholera is a waterborne disease and would not reach the epidemics where of the figures where we are today. So you fight cholera now and probably win after having spent colossal amounts of money. We don't even plan as an African government how to deal with the calamities such as this one. That's why every time you have an outbreak like this, you have to run to the so-called donors and you start crying like small babies as a government.
In fact, with that said,
come and help us.
With that said, would you advise that it's declared a public health emergency?
It is.
And we seek help from the external aid?
It is. But you see, one of the arguments that I've always held, you know, and I still hold that view very firmly, is it is high time that we dealt with our own planning. This idea of running, you know, to the west, it's embarrassing. 59 years after independence, that you can't control cholera. Look at what happened during COVID. This population would have been decimated. The affluent population would have been decimated, because what happened, the guys in the West first discovered, you know, the vaccine, used it, you know, to serve their populations, and then after that, they gave that to us. Can't we draw lessons as Africans from these developments? Look at AIDS. Up to today, we are still dependent on the ARVs being donated to us. Up to today. I've never heard the Minister of Finance pronounce in his budget presentation that so much money has been given, you know, to the Minister of Health to buy ARVs. We are still at the beck and call of the American, you know, benevolence. You know, no, we have, you know, so every time you receive, you know, ARVs, there is a ceremony. Without shame. We are not even ashamed, you know, to beg. We have lost the sense of public shame to be beggars as a people.
And indeed, speaking of the public, let's engage the listener to come through. 0978-895-895 or 0211-226841. In case you've just joined us, our guest is the Economic Front President, Mr. Wynter Kabimba. As you come through, please keep your contributions within a minute so that we accommodate as many callers as possible and get a response from our guest.
Good morning, Honorable Wynter Kabimba. Good morning, Wynter.
Dr. Proud, good morning.
Yes, this is Dr. Proud. For example, Wynter Kabimba, you can't say you are agreeing with our Republican president when you say Barotseland and Zambia is one country. Our president is following the constitution. The law which is guiding the nation is constitution. So there is no other referendum our president can call. In the referendum, there is only the Zambia, be it in Wapura, Eastern, Western, Barotseland. And that constitution is new PF who left it, and Edgar Lungu who released it. So stop talking about that issue, Wynter Kabimba. You are not the right person to comment over issue of our president affairs. To come to the nation Hirochi, the more we are talking about the selling of Kwata, we need also bank governor. Go and interview me, you the Phoenix, including this direct. Go and interview the bank governor. Because our president was holding a meeting with the PS. We need also this meeting to go and extend it to bank governor. So that is also they should not only host a politician, they should go keep information. Keep it tunga, keep in present government forum. Send the interview. So then everybody must be still accountable.
Thank you so much, Dr. Proud.
Can you please have a better caller than this?
Well, with another caller, I don't know if you said this is a better caller, but we have the Patriotic Front former Deputy Secretary General, Madam Mumbipiri, on the line. Good morning.
That's the one I want.
Good morning, Shumuika.
Good morning, Madam Mumbipiri.
Good morning, Honorable my dad, Wynter Kabimba, and Happy New Year.
Good morning, my daughter Mumbipiri, and Happy New Year to you.
You didn't invite me for Christmas and New Year, my father.
There was nothing to celebrate. What are you feeling, Sarah?
I have two things, Honorable. The first thing is the address we had from the President to the Permanent Secretary. For me, I consider that as just public appeasement. He was telling his PSS things which they don't follow. In short, the way I see my president, now I'm even wondering, if Valanda publicly, nicely, but they don't do things, these things. Why do I say so? We have heard the president on several occasions telling the Inspector General of Police not to arrest people before they finish investigations. And I'll take an example of what is happening today. Today marks 5 days since Madam Shikakwasha was incarcerated in the police cells. And what we have been hearing, is that the police are still investigating. Under our law, she's supposed to be taken to court if they have found something within 48 hours. If they haven't found anything, she's supposed to be released. Why keep a woman, an old woman, in police cells today 5 days with no charge? We have these pandemics, 2 of them, COVID and cholera. My father, I was arrested. I was charged within 2 days. I was taken to the prison. When they take you to police cells, they don't screen you. It's only when I went to the police or to the prison that they discovered that I had COVID. Because at prison they screened me. So is it fair that a woman can be kept for 5 days with no charge, and the president has told the police not to keep people within 48 hours? Are they listening to him? The second one is on corruption. We saw the Minister of Foreign Affairs selling a mine on a piece of paper which looked like he just picked it, maybe even from the dustbin. Made an agreement there. We saw cash being given to him. There, you can even see that that minister didn't use the proper procedure, even if it was his private business, to make a transaction. He didn't even pay ZRA, and everything has gone quiet. Is this a clear sign? You can also see that the selective way of application of the law. And as I conclude, I'm too surprised why the president is quiet over Forest 27, which he said was going to demolish because there was corruption. They are quiet now because I told them, even your own MPs have land in that Forest 27, and yet we can see people in Kasonte, their houses being broken. I would want to hear your comments, my dear father. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Quite a number of issues have been brought up there by Madam Mumbipi.
Yeah, I think she raises very important issues. You know, Chimweka. Let me handle them one by one. The first one on Mrs. Shikapwasha, I think I touched briefly on it, although I didn't mention the name. This has to do with the principle of the presumption of innocence, which is provided for, which is guaranteed actually in our constitution, that you are presumed innocent until you are proven guilty. So, Amumbipiri is right, and she's also talking from experience, that the government, the Human Rights Commission, the UPN government, should be seen to uphold this presumption of innocence. There's no need why HH should be talking about the rule of law and preaching it every day without observing things like the civil liberty guaranteed under the Constitution in respect of the presumption of innocence.
But also just on that, she also spoke about the 48 hours, but we were aware that even as the police are still investigating that matter, there's a murder allegation here. So keeping that in mind, especially with your legal background, how would you exactly respond to that? Because this has been 5 days, but there's a murder allegation here.
You know, what I have seen myself, you know, the problem with in this country, we are too timid, you know, towards the truth. What I have seen myself in other countries is that police would give the public a regular update Okay? General Shikapwasha was a public figure. And all of us are interested as to the circumstances leading to his death. So, the police command, by now, or the Minister of Justice, or the Minister of Home Affairs, should have given the country an update as to what circumstances, they suspect to have led to the death of General Shikapwasha. And once you do that, the people then appreciate why the suspects are being kept beyond the prescribed 48 hours. That's what we see in other countries. What we are getting now, we're just getting bits and pieces of information from members of the family. Now, you don't even know where the truth lies. So I think the police would do a better job than they are doing by giving an update over this matter. The other issue that is related to this is that really, if the president were serious about civil liberties, he would be firing his IGs every month. IG Musamba should have gone a long time ago if the president were to be serious about how this man is performing his job. And I think that's the point that Mundipiri is raising, which is a very valid point. Does the president say one thing in public and another thing in private to these guys? Or, if what he says in public is true, why doesn't he take action when these guys don't comply with his instructions? The third thing is about that she raises is about corruption.
But even on that, we've seen an Inspector General have his appointment terminated
after how many years?
Under President Njuma.
After how many years? And after he has done how much damage? How much damage should Musamba do before the president takes action against him?
So you're saying immediately he notices something, he has to instantly dismiss?
You must show him the door. You must show him the door. Okay? He doesn't have to wait until this groundswell of anger from the public drowns him. No, he must take action immediately. He is performing those functions on our behalf. Okay? The third thing that Mubipili raises is the issue of corruption. Now, I'm glad I didn't want to pick on
Stanley Kakubo.
Stanley Kakubo's. Firstly, I don't know the man. I've never met him. So, he's not my friend. I know him from the press as the Foreign Affairs Minister, or I knew him. But let me say one thing, and I disagree with this very strongly. Kakubo's action was not corruption. Okay? What he did was not corruption. It was, of course, morally reprehensible for a leader in his position, but that was not corruption. Kakubo was involved, and Mumbipiri says, he puts it correctly, that he was involved in a private transaction. Buyer and seller. A contractual transaction. The state didn't lose any money. The money that he received was not gratification. So the man was not involved in any act of corruption, and that's why it was difficult for the president to fire him. All that he had to do is ask him to resign on moral grounds. So for me, if you want to pick on Kakubo's case, no, that's not a good example of corruption.
Even that, it's not exactly clear that the president asked him to do so, because from what the statement was, the president only accepted the resignation of Mr. Kakubo. So that could be just him, out of his own right, deciding to resign on moral grounds.
No, the trend of events, was that if one of the print media news circulations was correct. The headline was these Chinese, what was the headline? The Chinese demanding, whatever from Kakubo. And then the subheading was that the president had summoned Kakubo to community house. So there was a discussion between the president and Kakubo before he resigned. And I said myself, even before Kakubo's resignation, that I don't see the president firing this man, because there's nothing wrong that he has done in terms of corruption. So I'm sure, and this is just conjecture, Kakubo must have said, but Your Excellency, these guys, I offered them my mine, they paid me part of the money, and then we disagreed, and so the best I can do morally, let me just resign. And I think that was very honorable on his part. What surprised me was a day or two later, there is a report that ACC has gone to invade his house, just to sensationalize the whole thing. Okay, there's no corruption in Kakubo's case, as far as I'm concerned. Nothing.
Very briefly, Forest 27, before we take in more calls. But BP also asked about your take on Forest 27.
She is correct. There are too many guilty people. There are too many sinners in respect of Forest 27. They are both in PF and UPND. I remember my young brother Gary Nkombo, the Minister of Law Government and Housing, standing up on the floor of the House, debating very intelligently before they got into power. That Forest 27, you will see, when we win in a few months' time, we shall bring it down. They have failed to bring it down. Why? Because they discovered later that the sinners were not only from PF, they were also from UPND. And that's what has compromised the. But I also said one thing, about Forest 27, that it is, from a local government perspective, that it is not always true that what you do is to demolish those houses. You can also regularize them. You can also regularize them. You can regularize the properties and ask those guys to submit drawings to Lusaka City Council and get them regularized. So the sinners around the Forest 20, they can launder themselves. There is a legal channel that they can use to do the correct thing.
0211-226841 or 0978-895-895. Good morning.
Hello, good morning, sir.
You're through to let the people talk. What is your name, sir?
Tom Get calling from Chunga.
Please go ahead.
Hello?
You can go ahead. We're hearing you.
Oh, okay, sir. I want to make a comment on Honorable Wynter Kabimba. On the Let the People Talk. He mentioned a lot of issues, more especially on the issue of corruption with the PF, without mentioning on the UPND. So it's like the visit of Wynter Kabimba to the president. He did not visit that. His visit was not to talk about the family issues. From the way he's speaking, you can even get something out of it that is now the hired gun of the government of UPND. Because there is no way a person who is in opposition gunning down the opposition and defending the government in power when there are a lot of issues that are affecting the people of Zambia, more especially on the issue of corruption. Imagine the foreigners seeing the corruption that has been prevailing in the UPND, but the person who is also inspiring the position of the president has failed to recognize the corruption that has been or that is occurring in the UPND.
All right, thank you so much, Tonge. Let's take another call before we get the response from the guest. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother Shmek. How are you today?
Good morning.
I'm doing fine. This is Brother Chisha in. Good morning, President Kabimba.
Good morning, sir.
We saw the pics on social media where you were invited to go to community house. the way you are coming out, Mr. President, today, calling you PF to be in the ICU, is that really necessary? Because for you and PF, you are in opposition. Why is it that you are targeting PF so much? The Lord is dead. It's what? Is it necessary for you to come out the way you are coming out? Does it mean that when we are invited, you were compromising your principles? Because what I know is that people who are in the opposition, there's no need for you to fight each other because you belong to opposition. But for you, the way you are coming out today, Mr. Kabimba, it shows that you are compromising one or the other. What is the aim of for attacking your colleagues whom you are in opposition together? Calling them names, I think it's not necessary. For me, what I know is that, yes, you have a right to condemn, but not to judge, to say no, PF is dead, going by history. History, yes, it's there to show us something, but at the same time, PF is, you cannot compare PF to MMD, neither to UNIT. Because after they lost the elections, they went almost to just.
Brother Chisha, thank you so much. I think we've gotten your point. Let's get your response, Mr. Kabimba. Let's start with Tonge's contribution. He feels, and it's quite similar to Chisha's contribution, where they feel that you have been compromised since your visit to Community House. I know we touched on this earlier, but others still don't seem convinced that you still remain neutral and an independent thinker.
Let me start by quoting one philosopher, Immanuel Kant. You know what he says? If the truth shall kill them, let them die. If the truth shall kill them, let them die. Okay? I am a very, very consistent person. What has shamed many people is my meeting HH. Because the picture out there was that I hated HH. The picture out there was that I was bitter against HH. So they are ashamed now. And I've said to you that I met ECL many times when he was president. We spoke on the phone with ECL many times when he was president. Now, let me also say this. The issue of corruption in PF, I said it during Michael Sata's era. The man that I loved so much, Bachisha, if you don't know. There was a headline in the Post during Michael Sata's era that I said there was corruption in PF under Michael Sata, and that there was tribalism in PF under Michael Sata. So you're not hearing this from me for the first time because I've just come back from Community House.
But maybe you can also understand the trail of thoughts for some people. You have rightly said you interacted with former president, then President Edgar Lungu, yes, a number of times, and it eventually ended with a collaboration building up to the 2021 elections. Yes. So are people being unreasonable to think the same now that you've been to Community House? The next expectation is you're going to collaborate with the ruling UPND and speak the same language as them.
No. That is, the logic you are pursuing is one which my professor was saying. A chicken has two legs and a human being has two legs. Therefore, a human being is a chicken. Okay? Logically, it is correct, but the conclusion is wrong. I didn't visit or speak to ECL just because of the collaboration. I've continued to speak to ECL even after he lost power. If you remember, when his wife was at Ibex police station, I went there to visit the wife, to find out what is going on. Where was Bachisha and the other man from Chingola? They didn't see those pictures. I went to see ECL when he has nothing now, when he's out of power. So when you ask me a question, what I think about PF, I'm going to say the truth. If the truth doesn't please Mr. Chisha, tough. If Mr. Chisha wants to twist the truth that I'm saying, I'm being truthful now because I've just come back from community house, that's his opinion. Now, let me also say this. He says, you know, there are foreigners that are seeing corruption in UPND. The point that I've raised, and I said this even before I went to community house. Kakubo, the issue came before I went to community house. I said it. Ask my colleagues that are here in the studio. Chikolete is here with me and others. I said to him, there is no corruption here. Just before I went to community house. Okay? Then he's saying, no, but why are you attacking PF? To tell the truth about PF is not an attack, sir, on PF. No. That is the truth. The point I raised was, if history is anything to go by, and you can mark my words, PF will be lucky to survive. Because I've seen political parties that have lost power, and how they have mismanaged themselves.
But just on that, even with political parties losing power and eventually destabilizing, and we didn't really touch on this, but one of the major allegations now is that the UPND has got a hand in the affairs of the party. They have disputed these allegations. The president has been on record, the government spokesperson has been on record dispelling these rumors, but those within the party, especially from one faction of the party, still maintain that that is the case.
Look, if you have a problem with your wife and one of you takes that problem outside the house, and the fellow one of you is talking to outside the house compounds the problem, you can't blame the outside. Okay? You can't. If you and your wife have failed to resolve a problem, and you think, and one of you falls victim, you know, to an outsider who doesn't mean well, you can't blame the outside. That's a problem. Why don't you want to hear the truth? If PF has problems, and some of the members of PF find themselves victims in the wrong hands of UPND, is that UPND's problem? It's still a PF problem. That's my view. That is my honest view.
Let's take in some more calls. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
You're through to let the people talk. Who's on the line? Kabimba, your line is not very clear, but let's hope we'll be able to hear what you're saying.
Okay. Good morning.
Thank you.
Okay. First and foremost, I would love to advise, say, initially you were a very credible leader, and I to believe it, because you speak out. At this time around, but you are now joined the back of a team of politicians. To start with, earlier you mentioned, you talked about some public officers, for instance, the police IG may be overzealous, like you cited an example of what transpired during the era. But then you completely ignored that it is still the problem of leadership, the executive. Like you mentioned, ECL said it's just the overzealous, and he called the minister in charge, and that minister in charge corrected the situation. That's the reason why those police officers withdrew from your camp. However, again, you are contradicting yourself when it comes to the issue of, President HH dealing with the IG. Because it simply means if the IG can err and, the president does nothing, or the Minister of, Home Affairs does nothing towards that, then they are actually approving of whatever the IG is doing. So,
okay, we'll have to let Kabimba go due to time. Let's take in the last call here before we get a response. Remember to keep your contributions very brief. Good morning.
Yes, good morning. How are you?
Very well, Brother Morgan.
Yes, good morning, everybody, and good morning, the listeners, and good morning, Comrade Wynter.
Yes, very briefly, Mr. Morgan, please go ahead.
Let me quickly point out that issue which has raised is that there is no Barotseland. Yes, we are still one Zambia, one nation, but it was there. Kaunda died. Why didn't you ask him? Because he was a witness who signed that land. But it is one Zambia, one nation that we don't want to divide the nation, but only one Zambia, one flag. You go to our western, you find there's some Zambian flag which is there. But it was agreement. That's a fact. The last three, Comrade Wynter Kabimba was, in terms of fighting cholera, he was a town clerk, Osaka city clerk. How did you plan the Osaka city, the way drainages are today? Are you the one who caused it? Because you was a clerk. The planning was on your hands. So we don't have drainages. We need proper drainages in the city. Because right now, go to town center, you find the flood is there. Town center, that near times of Zambia. How did you plan? I thank you, my brother.
Thank you so much for coming through, Brother Morgan. Let's start with Kabimba, who was just trying to understand your perspective on how the president is supposed to act in a situation where people who he appoints are not performing effectively. You made reference to former President Edgar Lungu and made reference to President Ejilema. But also, while you're answering this question, I would like to also find out from you how the president is expected to act when, at the same time, these institutions are expected to act independently. Because the argument is these police officers are doing their work without approval from the president. When the president sends these people, politicians will complain and say the president is sending them. But when the president interferes again in their favor, there'll be the same people clapping. So do politicians want the president to interfere or not in the affairs of these institutions?
Look, I think we are going in circles. I alluded to that during this discussion, and I think my anchor of that point was Mumbipiri's submission. Okay? And I agreed with Mumbipiri. Mumbipiri's submission is this. It seems the president says one thing in public and says another thing to these guys in private. That's Mumbipiri's submission. And I agree with her. Why do I agree with her? Because if the president did not do that, he should fire the officers. Simple. Simple. Okay? If the president thinks that the IG is not complying with his directives, with his instructions, I said earlier, and the phrase I used was, he must show him the door.
By the way, on that particular issue, even of the police, I've interviewed the Zambia police spokesperson several times,
yes,
especially when especially politicians, public figures, get detained for more than the stipulated 48 hours.
Yes.
And the explanation from the Zambia police is that it's the politicians themselves who delay some of these processes because maybe some of them want to gain some political mileage and so on.
No.
There's delayed tactics, and that's what leads to that. So imagine if the president asks such a question to his appointee, the IG, and that's the feedback he's getting, do you really expect the president to dismiss his IG when that's the information he's getting?
No. Look, we are not casting this argument in concrete. Okay? There could be different dimensions, and the variables to which, but that explanation by the police is not correct. That explanation by the police is not correct. We have seen clear abuse of the rights of political party leaders in this country, deliberately so. Somebody will be arrested, and you know what happens? The arresting officer, the one who picked him up, just disappears. And then when you go there, you are told, no, the dealing officers are people. And there is nothing that we can do. Sometimes they give you ridiculous bail conditions. That, you know, one of the sureties must be an employee of government. When they know very well that very few people would be willing to come forward, to step forward as a surety if they are working in the government, because they are scared of retribution. Okay? That's it. So it is not true. The police spokesperson, when you interview them, they are economical with the truth. Now, I want to get back to somebody who said you've been a critic, you know, of, and now you see nothing wrong with it. No, I still see everything wrong. At the beginning of this discussion, I said, I made a statement right at the beginning when HH was so, you know, flying high, you know, about this IMF program. When Stumbeko Musokotwani, you know, was promising heaven on earth about this IMF program, I said to them, it shall not work. And I've said, it is not working up to today. So, what else, you know, do you want me to say? What I don't do is to play the politics of insulting one another. I will not insult anybody in the opposition. I will not insult anybody in the UPND. And this has nothing to do with the community house visit. I think that the economy is in its doldrums. It is a runaway economy. It looks like HH, Musokotwane, the bank governor, have no idea how to manage this economy. That is the truth. But does that take away the truth, the fact, does that take away, you know, or from the fact that if you are asked to explain where you got your money under PF, you should offer an explanation? No. Is that an attack? No. Chikorete is seated here next to me, you know. If they went to him and said, can you tell us, he has a farm in Mikango Barracks. If the ACC went to him and said, tell us how you acquired that farm, he doesn't need 5 lawyers to explain that. Just him and myself can explain that. Maybe plus his wife. 3 of us. We can explain that. So what is this view that if we talk about PF, therefore we are attacking PF? No. If people did wrong under PF, they must be held accountable. They can't be left free just because this is opposition. And for me, if you are wrong whether I'm with you in the opposition or you are in the UPND. And if you are right whether we are together in the opposition or you are in the UPND.
Lastly, Mr. Morgan Chilonda called in and wanted to find out if you have any role to play in where we're at today regarding the drainage systems with your background at the City Council.
That's a good question. This has been a cumulative, you know, problem. Okay? Chikwalete is seated to my right here. He was mayor of Lusaka. Okay? And cholera has been coming to this city over so many years. We dealt with it in 1988 when the late President Rupia Banda was the senior governor of Lusaka. We were given money by government. The point I was making, Chimweka, is not dwelling on the past. The point I was making, walking into the future, is that if you want to fight cholera, put measures in place to prevent it. That's how you fight cholera. And I've said, you know, that what we have, you know, in Lusaka are 25 informal settlements surrounding this city. And all of them, you know, without any form of sanitation services. That's what I've said. So my explanation is very simple. This goes to my brother, the Minister of Law, Government and Housing. If you want to prevent cholera, Bwana, in the future, deal with the other thing which is very important. I was going to lose my, thought over this, is that this is also as a result of the collapsed local government system. I watched the president saying that I've directed that all shallow wells should be buried, around the Lusaka. How is he going to supervise that from State House? How is the Minister of Local Government and Housing going to supervise that? Does the president know how many shallow wells are in Kamanga compound? Does he know how many shallow wells are in George compound? He doesn't. Who should know that? The councillors in those areas. Who works with those councillors? The Lusaka City Council. So if you want to fight cholera and any other epidemic in future, make sure that you revive your local government system. It can't be fought by the Minister of Health and the President and the Minister of Local Government and Housing. They are lying. It's not possible. Doesn't matter how many trips the President takes to the Heroes Stadium. It doesn't matter how many demonstrations the Minister of Health gives us about administering a cholera vaccine. Get back and fix the local government system. Then these public health epidemics will be brought under control.
So Kabimba, thank you so much for joining us on Friday's edition of Let the People Talk.
Thank you very much, Mweka, for inviting me.
Definitely looking forward to interacting with you further in the year 2024. Thank you, the listener, for tuning in to today's show. There's a lot to look out for on Phoenix FM throughout the rest of your day. My name is Jumwega Chileshe. Stay tuned to Phoenix FM. Only the best is good enough.
Phoenix FM on Instagram. Follow Phoenix FM on Instagram. Search Phoenix FM Zambia to see behind-the-scenes images and videos of your favorite presenters. Phoenix FM. Now on DSTV channel 915. Baby, let's go! Channel 915. Global news updates are brought to you by the Zambia National Building Society, ZNBS. Shelter through savings. The headlines. Biden says U.S.